evening, everybody, and welcome into the show. Once again, here at the Main Street Pub in Allendale, I'm Steve Lloyd-Jones, alongside head coach Matt Mitchell. We'll hear from him in just a moment. And, of course, DJ Foster, who is back with us. Great to see you again, DJ.
Glad to be back, Steve.
So the Lakers, a perfect 7-0, 41-3. They downed Truman State last Saturday at home. That's for homecoming. This week they're at Hillsdale. That'll be a 2:30 kickoff. But coming up over the next hour, what do we got?
Well, like you said, we'll talk about the second consecutive win over a Bulldog opponent, first Ferris State, then Truman State. We'll talk about the Hillsdale game coming up this Saturday. We'll bring in co-defensive coordinator Jim Lewis and senior wide receiver and relief pitcher Matt Williams.
That's right. A reverse cast we'll be talking with tonight. All right, let's get started. The GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell gets going after this on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
Hey, and welcome back to the GVSU Football Weekly Report with Matt Mitchell, DJ Foster here with you, Steve Lloyd-Jones. You heard the play-by-play voice right there on the Jalen Bryant touchdown on the blocked punt by Isaiah Nkansa. I think I'm saying that correctly. Welcome to GVSU Football Weekly Report. Tonight's show is being broadcast across the Grand Valley Sports Radio Network and can also be seen throughout Michigan on Xfinity 900. The show runs several times throughout the weekend, so check your local TV listings. You can also find this episode and all episodes of the GVSU Football Weekly Report on the GVSU Lakers YouTube page. Now we bring in head coach Matt Mitchell. A 41-3 victory over Truman State last week, moved to 7-0 on the year. It was homecoming. The 2006 national championship team was back for their 10-year anniversary. Just a great Saturday night in Allendale, Saturday afternoon, I should say, with the 4 p.m. start. And Mitch, you guys got off to a great start in that first quarter, 24-0. It's something that you weren't accustomed to this year, as you've outscored your opponents now 99-0 in the first quarter of games.
Yeah, we've certainly found a plan of how to get off to a good start. I mentioned this a little bit last week. I think we're doing a great job, not only with our preparation, but our approach on Saturdays. And a little bit different with the 4 o'clock start. I kind of liked it. A little bit different feel, but, great atmosphere, as you mentioned. A lot of a football alumni back. I hung out at the tailgate with the 2006 national championship team. I was fortunate to be an assistant on that staff, so a lot of guys, that I coached that were on that team, and hung out with them. And then our sidelines, there was, some guys down there that played football at Grand Valley, and saw them at the tailgates in the stands. And so it's pretty cool to bring everybody back. And I'm glad we went out and performed well. A little bit of concern coming off kind of a big win over Ferris State, just from a rivalry standpoint, the anchor bone, and a lot of that was put into that based on our recent history that we've had with Ferris. But then, you get a team that's a little bit of a relative unknown maybe to the fans and a relative unknown to our players. But we had a great approach. We got off to a fast start, and obviously our defense led the way again. Our defense is playing very confident right now. We didn't get very good kickoff coverage to start the game, so, they got the ball a little bit closer to midfield, but got the big pick from Mark-Eric Rosenquist, a defensive lineman, rare that a nose gets a pick, so it was kind of cool for him. Then it was Marty in there, and then we got another interception. Joe Moran, a senior, makes a great play on a ball across the middle. Marty runs it in, and then we get him backed up again, and we go with the block, and we blocked a punt. So we turned, real quick. It was 21-0, and it was really all 3 phases of the game were contributing. Offense, defense, and special teams came out firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, it really was very impressive to watch. Other than the blocked punt, what phase impressed you the most? Because, each of them had standout parts to it.
Well, I would say just from an offensive standpoint, I thought Bart Williams probably played one of his better games. He did a good job managing some protections, and they brought some pressure. I think they brought a lot more blitzes than maybe even we were expecting them to bring. And he got us into some good run checks, some good protections, and then we threw the screen to Dotson, and it got us the 41th point there kind of in that third quarter. So he hit some guys in stride, was really, putting the ball where it needed to be. And so I think that will help. I think Heading into the season, when you talk about Bart specifically, Steve, there's a lot of expectations on himself. You come off a year where you take a team to the national semifinals and you lead the NCAA in touchdown passes with 45. I think he had really high expectations and maybe put a little bit too much pressure on himself in terms of his performance. Was really just upset with every missed pass, and I think that was important to get the Ferris win. And then I just felt he kind of eased into it a little bit more and was kind of throwing the ball with a little bit less reservation or hesitation about what the outcome was going to be and just letting it rip. And I've seen that this week in practice. I mean, he's at one of his best week of practices just in terms of letting the thing go and his gunslinger attitude that really propelled us in 2015. We're starting to see that. So that was good to see from the sideline. Again, his stats have not been bad. And he's had a really good statistical year, but when you're kind of breaking down the tape and he's looking at himself with a very critical lens, there's a couple of games I think he wish he probably could have played a little bit better. And I think that pressure is kind of off a little bit at him. And then after a couple games here, he's played extremely well.
Mitch, a game like this where that Truman State opened the year losing to Midwestern State, also part of the region. Now you face Truman in the middle of the year. Does it factor into your thinking at all how you win a game like this and what kind of statement you have with a head-to-head matchup like that? And Midwestern has played them too?
Yeah, well, first of all, that doesn't matter to the committee. There's a committee, but the committee can do all the rankings just based on a lot of numbers. Like the committee is just a committee. It doesn't vote. It's not like the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee of Division I basketball. They got criteria, and they go 1 through 8 the criteria, and it's pretty black and white how the regional rankings work and that. So I don't know that in the margin of victory or how impressive the victory looks really matters for us as you start to look at the playoff race. What I'm more concerned with was the approach and how we handle our business. And I think that we're seeing a validation for how we do things on a day-to-day basis. And it was good to, in my opinion, show our team the potential the 2016 Lakers have. I mentioned this post-game in the locker room, and I also reiterated it to the team meeting on Sunday. I'm excited about the potential the 2016 Lakers have. Again, I've seen teams on tape from our region now, and I've been able to see that, and I know the potential. I'm telling you, we can still be better, and they believe that we can be better. And even though we won 41-3, there's some things that we can be better at, and individually and unit-wise, offense, defense, and special teams, and as an entire team. And that's okay. That's okay to know that you can be better, and it's good to feel that excitement of the thing. And so we got back to work on Sunday. We dug into the tape and started getting after Hillsdale, and with that in mind. And so I think, have a group that thinks, we can be better. We got to trend upwards and keep coming to work every day to try to, reach our potential.
Listen to the GVSU Football Weekly Report with Matt Mitchell. The segment brought to you by Cardinal Buses. Go in comfort, go in style, and go green. Go with Cardinal Buses. Coach, you mentioned Nick Dotson with the 2 touchdowns in the second half. And talk about his progression, how he's turned into, you probably have 4 number 1 receivers, I would argue, depending on the week and the opponent. But he now leads the team in not only receptions, but touchdown catches as well. Talk about how he's went from being a contributor last year to being now a go-to guy.
Yeah, it's a pretty, I wouldn't say remarkable, but it's a unique story. First of all, he's not a prototypical receiver from a Grand Valley standpoint in terms of the size. Jim Lewis, who's coming on the show a little bit later, recruits the Chicagoland area, and he's from a suburb of Chicago. And, we saw something on tape, and then we brought him on a visit. He had great ball skills and probably more impressed with his maturity. He comes from a family of athletes, track athletes at Kansas State, and there's a lot of athletes in his family. So he came in last year. It's very, very hard to play as a freshman anywhere in college football, but specifically, at our program too. And he beat out a lot of guys, and I don't know if it had to do so much with his physical ability, but his maturity, his ability to handle some of those situations. And we really needed him in 2015 when Potts went down and got hurt, and we were getting beat up at wide receiver last year. He stepped up big. The progression from year 1 to year 2 has been really good. I think the first thing is he can play all 3 of our wideout positions. He's an intelligent person. He gets it, so we put him in all 3 spots. You've seen him make plays at all 3 spots. And previously, kind of the knock on him was that if you pressed him up or put somebody in his face, it wasn't going to go well for him just based on the size. Like he was going to get dominated a little bit at the line of scrimmage. And so what he's done a great job of through spring practice and here in fall camping and season, he's learned how to get releases against different types. He was always good against off coverage and zone coverage because of the feel and the wiggle and the spacing. He has good feel. What he's developed is the ability to get off press coverage. Last year's game against Ferris State, he got dominated by their corners. They put their hands on him and the rep was pretty much over. Now that's not happening when he has a way to release, and his release is going to be different than Urson Smith's release, and that's going to be different than Matt Williams' release, and that's going to be different than Brandon Bean's release. He's developed an identity to be able to handle a lot of different scenarios that might pop up within a football game. And, before I think he was a little bit more of a one-trick pony potentially as a freshman. I think he's developed more routes that he's comfortable at, different balls that get thrown to him. And like I said, being okay with close combat and quarters that are very tight. He's been able to handle that a little bit better than his last year. So we've really seen a progression of development from year one to year two. And as a result of that, Bart has a tremendous amount of trust in him, and our coaching staff and our team has a tremendous amount of trust in him. So we put him in some positions to succeed.
Let's go to the defensive side of the ball here, which obviously an impressive effort again by your guys. We'll talk with Jim Lewis coming up in just a bit. But some guys who are, I wouldn't say under the radar, certainly to you as coaches, but maybe for fans and others who are used to seeing starters, but now guys emerging. Isaiah Nkansa with big plays. He's starting to come along very nicely. Deshaun Hurley, we saw him really flash and make some good plays as well. And Kalen Dunham every week seems to be in the mix making plays. Talk about these younger guys and the move they're doing on the roster.
Yeah, sure. I think, Coach Lewis is his coach, and I've, been around. I think we're proud of the development Isaiah Nkansa's made. I mean, I think he'd be the first one to tell you, and for sure the coaches would tell you against Tiffin, it was rough. It was extremely rough. His first college football game was not good. Not a lot of trust in him from my standpoint as a special teams coach or anything, and he's done a great job of continually progressing and get better. So much so that on Saturday, I felt the confidence to put him in a position to block a punt, and he came through and made a play for our football team. He blocked a punt, and so he's got a lot of reps at linebacker on Saturday because of the injury to David Talley, and he comes from a football family. His brother is a starting offensive lineman at the University of Toledo. He recruited him from Mason High School. It's just outside Cincinnati, and it's a single mom and just three boys in the family, and they're all live and die football. And so he comes from that, and he's really done a good job developing and growing. Kalen Dunham is a long corner. He's extremely long. He's a cover corner. He's got a good feel. There's some mistakes he made 2 weeks ago against Ferris, and again, he's continued to come on. And I'm not sure that we thought he was going to play this much, Steve, his redshirt freshman year, but the injury to Trey Walton has thrust him into a position that he's had to play quite a bit more. And, he stepped up and good job. There's some rough patches at times with his production, his performance, but he's really grasped that role extremely well. And then, Deshaun Hurley was a productive player at Ball State, and he had an ACL injury, and we sat him last year as a redshirt because of some injuries and some other things. And, I think he's continuing to get better and progressing too. I think he was primarily a safety at Ball State. We've got him playing our nickel position, so there's a little bit of learning that's occurring there. But he's been really good on special teams, and I think he's warming up to the culture of Grand Valley football. When you transfer programs, sometimes that can be difficult. You go from a certain way of doing things in terms of meetings and organization and structure, and you come into another situation that's different. I got to give Matt Mosley a ton of credit. Matt Mosley's from a similar neighborhood from him, Chicago. Matt Mosley knew him from Ball State. Matt Mosley is one of the main reasons that Deshaun Hurley is at Grand Valley State. And Matt Mosley still comes around our building a lot. I have a great relationship with Matt. We're very tight. He's living in Grand Rapids and working in Grand Rapids. He comes by our building. And Matt has been instrumental, too, in helping with Deshaun in terms of, him getting acclimated to Grand Valley football. All three of those guys are making contributions, but I think all three of those guys have a huge upside and can be better. Deshaun is a sophomore. He has 2 years eligibility. And the other two guys have 3 years eligibility, and they're getting a tremendous amount of work in right now in the first year of college football.
No doubt about it. Well, we'll stay with the defensive theme. Jim Lewis coming up next.
Yeah, the Jim's been spearheading along with our other two defensive assistants, Nick Postman, E.J. Whitlow. I think he'll be the first to tell you he's got a veteran group of players at all three levels of the defense, defensive line, linebackers, and secondary. And I think that our coaching staff on that side of the ball is putting guys in great position. That's obviously we're number one in the league right now in scoring defense. I think we're fourth in the nation in terms of scoring defense. It's a very strong unit from a personnel standpoint. It's also a strong unit from a coaching standpoint. So he'll be unsure of how he thinks things are going so far.
We'll talk with him when we come back. This is the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell here on the Grand Valley Sports Network. Back after this.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
Sports Network. Yeah, we're back inside the Main Street Pub here in Allendale as we continue to roll on. Steve Lloyd-Jones along with DJ Foster, joined now, as mentioned, by co-defensive coordinator Jim Lewis. He's our guest. This segment presented by Earhart Construction, the official construction company of the Grand Valley Sports Network. Jim, great to see you again. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, thank you. That lead in there, Joel Skipper, big time, 51-yard field goal. And I said to him after that, see, even kickers can have physical presence on the football field. He hit that thing, it probably went 70 yards.
Oh, I know.
It was awesome.
I know it. No, it was an outstanding kick. Well, he had, 47 just a few weeks ago.
Absolutely.
There's a school somewhere in the state that could use a kicker too, right? That's not easy to do. At all. All right, let's talk defense with you here. My question to begin things, you're a defensive coordinator. You've been around it. What's the most important stat? What do you guys, there's a lot of different things you can look at. Most important thing.
That's great you asked that question, because Coach Mitchell actually just talked to the team about this today. And again, we don't look at stats as just a defense or an offense or special teams. We look at things that are team stats. Yeah. And there was analytics done from this college football year in the FBS level at Division I of what is the most important statistic that determines wins and losses, aside from the score of the game. Obviously, the win, if you win or lose, you have more points than the other team. But turnover margin is the number one statistic. So either creating turnovers or not turning the ball over. And that's a team stat, and it's not just a defensive stat. So, and most of the things that we emphasize as a defensive unit are what we emphasize as a team offensively as well. Winning third downs, either from us getting off the field or getting the punt unit on, or for our offense extending drives. Red zone efficiency is a team deal, and then also turnovers. So.
We just talked with Coach Mitchell, and you heard him saying you have a very veteran unit at all three levels of the defense. But then prior to that, we talked about having a bunch of young guys play these last few weeks in Kansas, Hurley, various guys, Dunham. So how have you been able to, with injuries to David Talley and Goldman and Punier, how have you been able to kind of work those young guys into what you have as a pretty good veteran core and just keep right on rolling?
Yeah, I think a lot of it stems from having the ability to have spring football, fall camp, the number of repetitions we get. Playing 11-on-11 football allows for younger players to get the opportunity to get the repetitions they need to have confidence and be able to go out there come game time. But like Coach was saying with Isaiah, the first few games are always going to be a struggle for those guys. I think the big thing we've been able to preach to them is next man up type of situation. And we were able to get them reps in games where we had comfortable leads early in the season and get into the rotation and the flow of things. And now, in Consa, Hurley, Jalen Harden, Kalen Dunham, those guys don't even flinch when they go out there. They're ready to go, not only line up and execute their job, but they're going out there to make a play. And that's fairly rare nowadays, and it's exciting to see. And what's cool about that is some of the other young guys that maybe aren't getting those opportunities are saying, hey, maybe I can do that too. And, we're starting to see guys at practice come out of their shell a little bit. And that's always a fun thing to have right now.
Another name we haven't brought up, Grant Postma, who, he's had his moments too. The injury to Punier allowing him to have some playing time. And he's, at least, again, to our eyes, we're not coaches, but he seems to be stepping up.
Yeah, Grant does an exceptional job for Coach Mitchell with special teams and has been for the past 2 years. And he's very conscious of what he has to do to help the team in any facet. And, you know, we're very comfortable putting him out there at our boundary safety position. And there's certain types of offensive schemes that we like to see Grant out there in. There's some others where we prefer to have, Jalen Harden in. So, I think Coach Postman has done a good job of personnelling our guys and subbing them in the right situation. And that's why we've been able to play a lot of players, because we have, third down packages. We have, if they're in a heavy run tendency look, we'll have Grant Postman out there, more of a pass look. It's probably more of a Jalen Harden thing to do. So,
Jim, how do you determine as a coordinator, a co-coordinator, but you're working at the game plan, where the balance between, I'm sure you'd love to dictate to the offense all the time. Sometimes you're reactionary too, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find that comfort zone of, dictating as much as you can, but also being alert to what changes they might try to do?
I think the biggest thing from the defensive side of things is having the ability to have disguise. So to look one way and do another, and know your tendencies as well, to have tendencies built that you're going to play a certain way based on the situation, and then throw them a curveball. Pressure on early downs, on first or second down, maybe showing pressure in third down and dropping out. And you see a lot of that. That's what we're doing, and what we're having success with in third downs right now is we're showing different types of exotic pressure, but usually at the end of the day, we're only rushing 4, and we're able to get pressure with that because we get a lot of one-on-one matchups based on the look that we get.
Dominican, right?
Yeah.
Just got to drop back into there.
Yeah. So, and we're doing that most of the time in third down, a little bit in second and long, but usually in the early downs, being predictable, but also at the end of the day, having some disguise with what you're doing and throwing curveballs out there.
Here with co-defensive coordinator Jim Lewis on the GVSU Football Weekly Report. And Coach, we're going to talk with head coach Matt Mitchell. In the next segment, we're going to break down Hillsdale a little bit. We'll give you the first dibs. Chance Stewart, big quarterback, can throw it around 6'5", I believe. What's the best way to defend him? What are you guys going to try and do to kind of get in his head and make up, maybe swing that turnover margin back in your favor?
Yeah, he does present problems because he's a bigger body guy. He makes good decisions with the football, hasn't turned the ball over a lot, is efficient in the passing game. And, I think the biggest thing for us is to pressure him, either with our front 4 or bringing an extra guy or 2, and just seeing how he responds to that pressure. He's been a little bit inconsistent that way. Certain games, he's really done a good job with the pressure, and there's other games where he hasn't. So, we have to kind of get in the flow of things and obviously get into those situations where they are going to be predictable. I think he has more success when they're in a 50-50 type of down, 50% run, 50% pass. And then at that point, he has a little more, flexibility and some, ability to be able to see windows and have a little more time.
Grand Valley State football team, the defense is one of 2 teams in college football this year to not allow a rushing touchdown. That's a great stat.
I didn't know that until I think it just came out, I think.
It's kind of making its rounds.
Yeah, and I follow the fake Bo Pelini on Twitter.
Bo Pelini.
Yeah, Bo Pelini had said the only team to not give a rushing touchdown, so we threw that over to Tim Knott, and he went to work with that, and he rebutted a fake Twitter account. So
we're on top of it there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Co-defensive coordinator Jim Lewis, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck this week against Hillsdale, and keep up the good work.
Thanks, DJ. Thanks, Steve.
When we come back on the GVSU Football Weekly Report, we'll bring back head coach Matt Mitchell. We'll talk about the Hillsdale Chargers, a 2:30 start in Hillsdale this week on the road for the Lakers and the Chargers. Come on back for more of the GVSU Football Weekly Report right here on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
Those 2 touchdowns from Marty Carter in 55 seconds in last Saturday's 41-3 win over Truman State. Back on the GVSU Football Weekly Report, DJ Foster, Steve Lloyd-Jones, and head coach Matt Mitchell. Before we get into the opponent breakdown, let you know about the Grand Valley State soccer team playing their final regular season home game tomorrow night. They're ranked number 2 in the country. They host Northwood at 7 p.m. at the GVSU soccer field. Lakers are 13-1-1 overall, 8-0 in GLIAC play. Their next win will clinch their 12th straight regular season GLIAC championship. And speaking of those, the cross-country teams are both at the conference championships this Saturday in Big Rapids, 11 a.m. The men's and women's teams are also both ranked number 2 in the country. The women have won 15 straight GLIAC championships. The men have won 14 in a row, so they're going to try and increase those totals this weekend. But back on the GVSU Football Weekly Report, it's time to look at the Hillsdale Chargers and our opponent breakdown, brought to you by Kent Equipment Solutions that turn work into play. And Mitch, they're 3-3 on the year. They're coming off of 2 road losses. Gave up a lot of points, 41 points at Wayne State, 46 to Finley. Defense seems to be struggling a little bit, but they're back at home on Saturday and certainly will be amped up to play you guys.
100%. They're 3-0 at home and 0-3 on the road. That's kind of the story of their season a little bit. It's always been a really good rivalry that we've kind of developed. When I first became a head coach in 2010, we had a wild one with them in 2010, my first year. And even 2009, we lost him in the regular season, came back and beat him in the playoffs. And so, Coach Otterbine's been around this league for a lot. He was originally the head coach up at Ferris State, kind of got them going, and then he left for Ball State to be a position coach, and then went back to his alma mater, and I think is in his 15th year, I think, back with Hillsdale College. So they have a formula for how to win football games. Sometimes, it depends a little bit about who they play and how the matchups end up working. But, this year's team, when I take a look at the 2016 Chargers, you start the offensive side of the ball with a quarterback. Chance Stewart was a highly recruited kid, had offers from Big Ten schools, ended up signing with Western Michigan, and due to some quarterback competition, ended up transferring out to Hillsdale and played a little bit last year as a freshman. This is really his first year playing a significant amount of minutes, and they're really leaning on him. They've probably passed the ball a little bit more than a typical Hillsdale team has passed. Joe Reverman was the GLIAC Freshman of the Year last year in our league, and he's back as their sophomore tailback. He's gotten off to a little bit of a slow start in this season. I think they've struggled to run the ball relative to maybe the expectations at Hillsdale. They're usually a very good rushing team, just because of some inexperience up front on their offensive line. But they've thrown around a little bit more. They definitely have scored some points. They've been able to do that. They had 51 against Michigan Tech. Michigan Tech always has extremely strong defense, and that was at home. So, defensively, they have struggled here the past couple of games. When you look at the tape, they've given up a lot of big plays. And I think that has to do with some youth. They've had some injuries at the linebackers. They're playing some freshmen at linebacker and some new faces at linebacker. So that's always the thing. I don't know if some of those guys that did play are going to be coming back off injury this week or not. We'll find out pregame warm-up. And then, their secondary's got some new faces, and there's the style of defense that they play are some one-on-one matchups, whether it's the safeties or the corners. They get some one-on-one matchups, and they've won some of those. But here the past couple of weeks against Finley skill kids and Wayne State skill kids, they've lost some of those matchups. So it's the flow of game that they want is to try to limit possessions, be a ball control offense. They don't like third and longs. They want to get in third and shorts and convert, matriculate the sticks down the field, occasionally take a shot for a big play, but for the most part matriculate it down the field. And I think they feel like their best offense is going to be to keep their best defense, to keep their offense on the field and not put their defense in precarious positions. So scores gotten away from them here the past couple of weeks and not allow them to play their style of football. Their style of football is 21-14, 28-24. That's the style of game that they want to try to be in. And, they've had a lot of success over the course of time doing that. And, we're playing them at home. And, like I've always said, at this point in time, just calling it what it is. They're 3-3. They're probably not going to win the league, and they're probably not going to advance in postseason. I'm sure for their seniors, and I'm sure for their program, as this being the last time we will play Hillsdale College because they're leaving for a new conference and exiting the GLIAC. I think this is probably a really big game for them. It can be a type of game that they can look back on their season and really put a feather in their cap to how they've done. So we understand that. We respect them. We're not scared of them, but we respect them. we know what we have to do to win the game, and we got to head down there and have the right approach here Friday and Saturday for that.
It just seems like a tough spot on the schedule right here. You had the big rivalry and emotional matchup with Ferris, and then Truman. You didn't know quite what to expect. You get Saginaw and Wayne State. Saginaw will be ready. It's a fierce rivalry, and Wayne's very good. But in between, it's Hillsdale and Findlay, and to be able to go on the road, generate that intensity that'll be needed, that's not a given, is it? That's tough to do.
Well, you have to go back to your leadership, and I'm not talking about just me. I'm talking about our group, and hopefully that you've spent enough time January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August to understand that the culture of your program wouldn't have an issue with this type of contest, that you've developed a culture within your program where expectations are internal. Some of the intangibles, we talk about 4 intangibles all the time. There's external stats that we care about, which I've talked to you guys a lot about turnover margin supposed to play, but there's 4 things I talk about our guys all the time that have to show up, that are intangibles. We know them. They may not show up on a stat sheet. If you're a fan, you may not know them, but being excited to play, being emotionally ready to play, that's got to be something that's an internal thing. Pregame speeches are overrated. Our guys have to be emotionally charged and ready to play. Being physical, we got to be physical. We have to be extremely physical. That's something that doesn't show up on a stat sheet at all. You have to be physical. You have to be disciplined. We weren't very disciplined with some of the penalties that we had at Ohio Dominican. We've cleaned that up. That's something to talk about. The last 2 games, we've only had two penalties in each of the last 2 contests, and one of those was on the head coach. So those are some of the things that we talk about. And in games like this, Steve, those things have to show up. And again, you hope all the work that you've done with the culture of your locker room and your leadership and the chemistry and all that stuff, that's going to show up. That's going to happen. And I'm not worried about it. Personally, I'm not worried about it. I'll find out on Saturday at 2:30, but I'm not worried about it. Part of I'm worried about it. I'm around these guys all the time. And we have a team that's got some great leaders. We have a great senior class, and we have really good leadership within our team. And I'm confident in those guys, and they understand that nothing is guaranteed. It's just this Saturday, and we got to try to find a way to go 1-0 on Saturday and try to get a record of 8-0. And there's a lot of talk about things beyond that. I just mentioned this at the end of practice here. At the end of the day, it's foolish. It's foolish for any of us coaches or players to be looking at anything other than what's 6 inches in front of your face. So I'm confident some of those messages have resonated throughout our squad, and that'll show up with our production, our performance on Saturday.
That's right. Hillsdale for the Lakers on the road. 2:30 kick on Saturday. 1:30 the radio coverage will begin. We'll talk more about the Chargers. What are the keys to the game for the Lakers? Well, Mitch will outline those for us when we come back. This is the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell right here on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
Welcome back, everybody. Yeah, Nick Dotson there on Saturday. 5 grabs, 120 yards, and a couple of TDs. We'll hear his other one a little bit later on in the show. Talking about the keys to the game right now with head coach Matt Mitchell as Grand Valley with the game Saturday at Hillsdale, 2:30 kick. Keys to the Game presented by Fox Motors, only the best. And Mitch, I know you've been talking with media throughout the week, so I was able to gather these earlier. But number one, limited possessions. You want your guys to understand how valuable that football is. It's extra valuable this week because you won't get a lot of chances with it, will you?
No, and we're not going to get a lot of extra possessions. You get extra possessions sometimes from turnovers. Hillsdale's not going to turn the ball over. They're not going to give us cheap possessions. They're not going to give us cheap possessions on special teams by making mistakes. So you combine that with them not being careless with the football, with the fact that they're extremely disciplined. They're one of the least penalized teams in the GLIAC, so they don't put themselves in bad spots. And in the style of their offense, they will take some shots. They'll try to hit a home run once in a while, but for the most part, it's a very methodical offense. It's an offense based on execution, and you get a 1st and 10 that goes to a 2nd and 7 that goes to a 3rd and 3, and you pick up the first down, and we just keep trying to do that again and again and again. And they are one of the teams that when you look back, they always lead the league in time of possession. That's an important statistic based on their style of play for them. And so there's been a lot of times in a standard football game, you're probably going to get 13, 14 offensive possessions. I've been around years where we played Hillsdale College. You might have only gotten 9 or 10 offensive possessions. So when you start talking about, scoring points, you're not going to have as many opportunities. It's not like, we go out there and have a bad possession and then we just get the ball back and do it again. That's not going to be the case. So I think the big theme we've been talking about with our guys on the offensive side of the ball is, execution, taking care of us, not having sloppy possessions because of poor execution or turning the ball over with bad ball security. And the flip side of that is, to get off the field on defense. The defense has to get off the field. And I think one of the, next keys to the game is that we have to change things up for Chance Stewart. I think based on the passing game, it's not going to be a 5-step passing game where he's going to sit back at the pocket and let our defensive line go to work. There's going to be a lot of boots. There's going to be a lot of sprint outs. There's going to be a lot of screens. The pocket will move a lot. The launch point is going to move. Things are going to change. So we have to try to mix things up for him. So one time he boots, maybe there's some pressure, and one time he boots, maybe there's some coverage. One time he sprints out, maybe we're in man. The next time he sprints out, potentially we're in zone. And continually try to change up the surfaces for him so it's not the same look, it's not the same surface, it's not the same contour every time that he's doing what he does out there. And I think that's going to help us get to some 3rd and longs. And getting 3rd and long, it's easier to get off the field, that way. And then, as it ties into that, which I mentioned, 2 third downs. The last 3 games, our offense has not been great on 3rd down. I mean, it's something we've been talking about with our players and as a coaching staff. Some of that has to do with the competition, but last week we only converted 2 of our 3rd downs. That's not good enough. And we have got to stay on the field on 3rd down. We can't get off schedule and get off the field. And then the other thing, our defense, as I just mentioned, they're going to not be in a lot of 3rd and 13s. Okay, our defense is going to be in like 3rd and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably a little bit more. And those are things where they have the option to run or pass, and some things are happening that we have to be great and get off the field. And eye discipline and control and everything is going to be really critical.
Well, there you go. Those are your keys to the game, all 3 of them from Coach Matt Mitchell, presented by Fox Motors, only the best. When we come back on the GVSU Football Weekly Report, we're going to bring in Matt Williams. And Coach, you remember a few weeks ago we made up that fictitious question about a fantasy football wide receiver and who would you pick from Grand Valley. And I joked that Matt was listening. I don't know if he was, but of course your answer was Nick Dodson, not Matt Williams. So I don't know if you guys want to hash that out when he comes on, but he'll be back.
I got to bring up old stuff.
I just had to. I wanted to see if we can get some fuel going here. GVSU Football Weekly Report with Matt Mitchell will return right after this. It's all presented by GVSUTeamShop.com, authentic Laker apparel for every game.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
back inside the Main Street Pub here in Allendale. Steve Lloyd-Jones, head coach Matt Mitchell. We're joined right now by the player as mentioned. Matt Williams is with us. Great to have you, Matt. As Grand Valley going to take on Hillsdale Saturday at 2:30.
Appreciate it. Matt Williams, senior wide receiver, pride of Geneva, Illinois. Lifelong Cubs fan. Is that a fair assessment?
That's very, very accurate.
Okay, so talk about how your fall's going from a Cubs perspective.
It's good, 2-2. Big game tonight. Don't want to lose games for 5 tonight. Go back to home to Chicago. We're down 3-2 to Kershaw and probably lose the series. But
there's your scatter report. My caveat, I could care less about baseball, so if you have any baseball questions, ask Matt. I care less about it, but I'm glad he's a Cubs fan and they're actually winning this year. All right, let's take it back to the start here. How did you get to Grand Valley State? Tell us that story because it's a little bit non-traditional. Transfer student athlete. Talk about that.
Sure, yeah. Started off at Northern Illinois University out of high school. Went there for my first 2 years of college. Went through a coaching change after my freshman season. I went in as a quarterback. Only played quarterback my freshman year. Kind of had to change of heart. Wanted to play baseball and football. I asked the new head coach if he'd be all right with that, and he said, "Yeah, be sure. Really, good for you, good for our program, everything." And then some things just kind of fell through. Didn't want me playing both sports anymore, so I played baseball at NIU for a semester, and after that semester, I started shopping for some new schools, trying to find out who would give me the best opportunity, allow me to play both sports and be successful and just do what I love.
So I remember when you came on your visit, we took you down on the field and we threw you a bunch of footballs, and then you got in a car at the Tillian and you went over to the baseball field. I have no idea what you did over there, but you liked it over there. Mm-hmm. Talk about that day coming down here and trying to press 2 separate coaching staffs with two performances.
Yeah, I just wanted to start a relationship, I guess it is. Coach Ginn took me on my visit, took me on the visit of the campus, showed me around, and honestly, the only thing I really remember from that day is Coach Ginn. We're walking through the bottom of Kirchhoff Center, and the sushi station is right there, and he goes, "You know what they call this back where I'm from, right?" And I was like, "Sushi." And he goes, "No, bait." So that's honestly the only thing I remember. It was fun. I kind of didn't really want to try to impress everyone. Just do what I know I can do, play well, and just get myself in front of coaches that will allow me to play both sports, and thankfully it worked out.
Yeah, and you came in here as a sophomore and played and had a role, but really your role jumped big time. You're in a junior year, and obviously a semifinal run and everything, and then your senior year off to a good start, especially picking up here the last 3-4 games. Baseball, though, has been a big impact on our baseball program. We play a lot of different positions. So talk to me a little bit about that. Talk to the fans about that. We've had some other guys get it done, but you're doing it at a very high level, having a big impact on 2 teams. What's the transition like from playing 15 games last year in football and then suddenly jumping right into the arena from the baseball perspective?
Yeah, football last season took pretty big toll on my body. I was pretty banged up at the end of the year. And thankfully, Coach Tillian made me run the mile the first day back. So that was nice of him. But, it's different. And honestly, it helps me stay focused on school, because if I didn't have baseball or football in fall or spring semesters, I would probably fall behind academically. And, it just really helps me keep me focused and staying out of trouble and just focusing on how I can become a better person. And it's just a lot of fun too. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. So it's been a lot of fun, just kind of trying to win games for both teams. And so hopefully we can keep it going here this fall and start again in the spring for senior for baseball.
And, stayed busy last fall football and, winter/spring with baseball. Then you had a unique opportunity this summer to do an internship. Talk a little bit about that internship that you did this summer and how you think that might help you when you get done here.
Yeah, it was an awesome opportunity. I had an internship with PepsiCo Bottling Company. PVC, PepsiCo Bottling Company. It's bad I work for them, but we'll figure it out. Yeah, I got an opportunity to go out there and be a sales intern every day this summer. I'd come back here on Tuesday and Thursday and work out with the team, and then get in the car and drive back to Lansing. So it was kind of a long summer in the car, a lot of self-reflection. But, I think it really helped me set up what I want to do with the rest of my life when sports are over, because inevitably they're going to end. And as much as I don't want to say that, but they're going to end. And I think that I've set myself up really well with moving on from football and kind of in baseball and just kind of staying in a competitive environment with Pepsi, and just it's a sales thing. So, you just got to go out there and do your best and impress. So.
Going from the locker room to the clubhouse. I've never been in a baseball clubhouse. Talk about the different, or maybe the same. Like, tell me about that. What's up with that?
There's a lot of similarities. We have way less diversity in the baseball locker room. So I think that's just the nature of the beast. The football locker room, there's just so many different guys you can mess with, and there's a lot more space, so you can't really mess with everyone. In the baseball locker room, you can mess with anyone at any time. So, it's fun in both locker rooms. We don't really have a huge clubhouse, so it's been fun, both baseball and football, and just can't wait for one last season.
My last question here before we get a break. Do you ever catch any flack from our team because instead of going through winter workouts and spring football, you're over there tossing the ball around and playing fungo, whatever you do on that side of the deal?
No, the only time I really caught a lot of grief was from Slosher. He kept giving me crap this summer because I wasn't at workouts every day this summer, so he was calling me eyewash and whatever. But if I'm not mistaken, I think he did something during the game, muscle-wise, or pulled something, which kind of reminded him that I've never done that, so I'm not going to win. So
just flex
exactly.
Yeah.
But nothing like that.
Okay, cool. I'm glad to hear we have that going. All right, sounds good. Appreciate you coming on. Let's go get the Dale.
Yep. All right, thank you, Matt. Great having you here. When we come back, we'll look around the league a little bit, talk some more Laker football with you. It's the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
Back one final time here inside the Main Street Pub in Allendale. Steve Lloyd-Jones, head coach Matt Mitchell, DJ Foster back with us. Lakers on the road Saturday at 2:30, the kickoff at Hillsdale. Grand Valley 7-0, going on the road against the Dale. And for the Lakers, Mitch, you get 3 of the last 4 games on the road right now.
Yeah, 3 last 4 on the road, just based on the schedule is. But I think we're, glass half full. They're all in Michigan. We got to go to Hillsdale, which isn't too bad, and Saginaw and Wayne, all about 2.5-hour drives. So we got a lot of our road trips early out of the way with the 2 down to Ohio. So, yeah, it's 3 of the 4 on the road, but they're going to be Michigan schools. They're going to be short trips. There's going to be a lot of fans, I think, at all 3 of those contests, just because of a lot of kids from the state of Michigan playing on all 3 squads.
Which, looking at the team landscape presented by Modern Office, brings spaces to life. Looking around the GLIAC, not a lot of big matchups this weekend. We talked just off camera. Probably the biggest one, Wayne State, Saginaw Valley. That's a noon start in Detroit. And we also mentioned Wayne State's got a tough schedule coming up these last few weeks.
Yeah, Wayne State has done a great job. Paul Renner's great coach, and so they put themselves around in a position. The one loss to Ashland. Other than that, they're sitting here at 6-1. But they do have a tough schedule coming up. It starts with Saginaw. But just watching some tape, Saginaw has a very salty defense. It's playing really well. If they struggle a little bit on the offensive side of the ball, Wayne's a pretty balanced team. They're getting production out of Romello Brown. They're running back. They're throwing the ball pretty effectively. They've got some skilled kids outside, and they have a good defense. So, like I said, their schedule is going to get real. They got Ferris, they got Ohio Dominican, and obviously they got Grand Valley State. So these last 4 against some winning programs, and you'll kind of find out if they're going to make that cut and try to put themselves in consideration for postseason play.
Yeah, Wayne State 6-1 overall, 5-game winning streak. Saginaw 4-2 with a 2-game win streak. Those are that's probably the biggest matchup in the conference overall. Now let's go into our Coors Light Ice Cold question presented by Alliance Beverage. Coors products distributed locally in the West Michigan area by Alliance Beverage. Last week last week was the 06 National Championship reunion. You were part of that, obviously. A great team, one of the best we've had here. What has been the best team since you've been here?
In terms of since being a head coach or overall my 13
years here, what's the best team we've had?
I'd probably say 06. The reason 06, you had senior quarterback Colin Finnerty, who was an absolute, just a warrior. Can't say enough about him. And then you had that defense. I was fortunate that year to have some really good defensive players at my position group. You had Dan Scooter, who's in the NFL. You had a lot of great players on that team, and it was really stacked at all three levels on the defense. We had a very strong quarterback play. So I would probably say that team, Mike McFadden, I could go through all the names, and some of those guys, including Brandon Carr and Dan Scooter off that starting defense, are still playing in the NFL. You got Brandon Carr's in his 9th season in the league, and Dan Scooter's in his 8th season in the NFL. Man, it's an unbelievable ability to play that many years, and you had two of those guys on that same defense with that many NFL careers. I would probably, have to say that 06 team. That was a really good team. And so 05 was good too. My 5-year-old kid, RJ, has got the DVD. He watches it every morning right now. So I lived through the 2005 season for 45 minutes every day now. So I'm probably a little more familiar with that squad right now off the top of my head. But, that 06 team that was here back on Saturday, what a great group of dudes. We had so many of those guys back and stay in touch with a lot of those. Anthony Adams is our team chaplain right now. He's at practice today. He travels with us on the road. He was a big part of that team, and then Mike comes by. And there's really been a lot of interconnectivity with that crew, that 2005, 2006 crew with our current roster. And that's a good thing for our football team, and I think it's a good thing for our kids too.
So going further off DJ's question, of the defensive guys you coached, who's the best?
Overall, I'd say Dan, and here's why I would say Dan. Dan played 3 technique. Dan played 5 technique. Dan played Mike linebacker. Dan played Will linebacker. Dan played on all 4 special teams. I don't know that we've had a defensive player at Grand Valley that was that versatile and a very unselfish person. We put him where we needed him. He started as a linebacker here, but moved around to a lot of different spots and did a lot of different things. It's very hard for me to put my finger on one specific guy. We got Matt Judon, another guy, Danny Richard.
Right.
Sick. If he had not blown his ACL twice, he would be in the NFL right now too. He's as good as a lot of those guys. If he had not had those 2 ACL injuries, he would be playing in the NFL also. So, a lot of great players, but Scooter's versatility, Scooter's competitiveness, Scooter's will to win, and his approach and his work ethic, just one of the best guys I've ever been around.
Mitch, you're a Twitter guy.
Yep.
There's a Twitter poll out right now on GVSU football.
I've heard rumors of this.
At GVSU football, best hair/beard on the team. We've talked about this probably more than we've needed to over the past few weeks. We had Alton Voss on a few weeks ago. We talked about your guys' beard.
You need some filler once in a while.
You talked about your beard at length. But a new competitor has risen to the top in the poll. You can still vote on it, so if you want to make a final push here you go. Bart Williams, 41%. You're at 36%, so not too far back. Alton Voss at 16%, and the dark horse, Cindy Omame, at 7%. Any thoughts? Make your final push.
It's hard to beat Bart with the locks of love, and you're never going to beat out a quarterback. Right? Quarterbacks always get everything. So, you know what? If I'm going to lose a competition, I'll lose it to Bart Williams. I'm not going to lose it to Alton Voss and Cindy Omame. I guarantee you that. Okay, I got enough personal pride. I will not lose it to a 20-year-old with a full beard. I'm not going to do that.
That's a loss, as they say.
I'm glad I'm hanging in there. I was kind of surprised by that. Twitter's a younger generation thing. I figured they'd go with the deal. So props to all the people that voted for me, however old you are.
You can retweet that and maybe get some final.
I might do that when we get off.
So we're going to get a final result of that poll. Sure. We'll give it next week. We'll update it next week.
Right. Sounds good. That'll do it for us tonight. Our thanks to Matt Williams for his time and co-defensive coordinator Jim Lewis as well. For head coach Matt Mitchell and DJ Foster, I'm Steve Lloyd-Jones. Thanks for listening tonight to the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell on the Grand Valley Sports Network. Have a great night, everybody.